In the last POV analysis, I talked about the best SE2 underdog story of all time, Oliveira's IEM run. In the last episode, I took a look at his amazing comeback versus Raynor in the quarterfinals, and today we'll be checking out two of his games against Hero in the semifinals, and these games include something that might be remembered as the most legendary SCV pool of all time. Let's get into it. Now, the context for this is the quarterfinals. At this point, the score was 1-1. There you go. And Oliveira has already shown a little bit of a new meta in this series. For most of all, Terrans usually play 1-1-1. They'll make one barracks, one factory, one starport, and then they follow with either a 3-1-1 or a third command center. Throughout this series, Oliveira started using something different. A build that has been seen before. It's not like he invented it, but he brought it back really strong and made it look really strong, which is to actually go for 2 barracks and 1 factory instead of a 1-1-1, and then kind of transitioning from there. So in this game, you can see Hero is going for a proxy gate and Oliveira is playing completely standard with an SCV scout. And I feel like something I really noticed watching this game is that Oliveira makes very few mistakes. Like sometimes, this is kind of hard to explain because these are the absolute best players in the world. But sometimes it appears as if they do nothing special. They just don't make any mistakes. And I feel like this game really was one of them. Just absolutely no mistakes, perfect scouting and everything from Oliveira. I was actually watching this with Kellizer, a pro Terran player. And what's very interesting is that he told me that cheesing against Oliveira's Protoss is really good because he never scouts. And I thought it really showed just a glimpse of his genius mind when he didn't scout for the first 2 games and then he decided to scout exactly this game knowing that Hero would react to it. Now here you can see this is pretty brave. He scouted the proxy gate and he's actually defending the low ground. It's very common to try and just go up on the high ground, cancel the command center, defend this, but Oliveira was confident enough in his micro that he just pulls, I think it was 5 SCVs, and tries to defend the low ground here with the bunker. I think realistically this might have been a better choice, but it's always very scary to pull off. Keep in mind 3 or 4 adepts are going to show up very soon, and you don't really want to take that much damage from that. So the bunker's going to go up. There's actually one tip I can give you guys. It is very important when you try to defend cheeses from any kind, especially the early cheeses. It doesn't matter whether you play against Protoss or Terran, actually, is you always want to skip the reactor to make at least a few more Marines. So here you can see Oliveira made 1 Reaper and 2 Marines before making that reactor. And you just need a little bit of extra firepower, else you just cannot do anything against this at all. Now, obviously here, it's not a main priority to defend this right away. If you look at the worker count, you can see the worker count is 24 against 25. Normally, you would think it's even, but normally Protoss gets ahead by about 7 workers. Terran usually has 2 meals, which is about 7 workers, so that's what makes it even. So the fact that the worker count is still even is really good for Oliveira here, so he's not going to be in a rush at all. Now here you can see the 2-on-1 I was talking about. He has a 2nd barracks and a factory instead of the starport, or a 3rd barracks, that's also a possibility. And then he kind of just switches back and forth. Sometimes he'll go for a Hellion, sometimes he'll go for a Cyclone. In this case, he's going to go for a Cyclone. This is really going to help him in defending these adepts, because there's quite literally nothing the adepts can do against it. They don't have enough range. One of them is going to die to every lock-on. Now, something that is unfortunate for Oliveira is that Cyclones are typically better against Stargate play than against Blink. So against Blink, sometimes you'd rather go for a tank, but because there's so many adepts out, it completely makes sense to go for a Cyclone here. As you can see, he got another kill. Now, he is a little bit afraid here. He's playing it safe. And this is kind of the edge or the balance that you're trying to find, rather. Because against, this is just 3 adepts. We can see it as the viewer. Like, if he knew it was just 3 adepts and nothing else, he would move out with a Cyclone, kill another adept. But you never know. What if there's a Phoenix out there? What if there's a few Stalkers out there? Then the Cyclone's suddenly in trouble. So Oliveira, because he got slightly ahead from defending that in the early game, decides to just stay at home. But obviously, it is kind of funny to look at that from a spectator perspective, that we know that if he went out with a Cyclone here, he would have been even further ahead because he just kills an adept for free. Maybe if he catches the perfect timing on the shade, he kills 2 adepts for free. And he decides to go for a 3rd barracks. Now, if you look at Oliveira's build here, this is actually where you can do a adaptation in this build. Here, he could have gone for another starport and just got medevacs a little bit faster. He also could have gone for tanks, but instead, he's going to go for the 3 racks play and then the starport. So he really wants to transition into a more standard build. He wants to go 3 racks, get both stim and combat shield, not just stim, and then get medevacs later. Probably attack around 7 minutes. I do have to say, by the way, if you guys haven't watched too many of Hero's games, Hero is absolutely terrifying to play against, especially as a Terran, because he is so brutally aggressive. Here, you can see in the minimap, he has a third Nexus. It doesn't even matter. He's still going to try and attack you with everything he has. So if you move out a little bit too fast, if you go into the chaos, Hero is really good at that, so you don't really want to be there. Oliveira actually going for a scan. Now, this is very interesting because scanning usually is not recommended early on. So what he thinks is he's far enough ahead. He just wants to know if Hero has too many gateways, if he's being all-in or anything like that. And he really just wants to be safe. Normally, scanning, you don't want to do it. Scan, it basically replaces a mule. A mule brings you about 200 minerals. So a scan technically costs 200 minerals, which is a pretty big deal. Now you can see Hero posturing outside of Oliveira's base. As always, going to be very aggressive, just like I said, despite having a third base against just a 2-base play. Now that observer is actually really annoying. Yeah, I was going to say he just scanned it. That observer was just spying on him all the time. I think there's very few feelings that are worse than just an observer sitting there and just spying at you and you don't have a scan to kill it. So I'm happy you actually saw that. The observers can quite literally win and lose you games. Like, I've played Protoss before on a high level. Playing without observers is impossible, but at the same time, if you have observers in the right positions, you will just make amazing plays. You can blink on full medevacs, you can catch everything, you'll never be surprised, you know, when the SCVs are being pulled, etc, etc. So Oliveira is going for tank. This is actually an interesting one. He's going for siege tanks. I wonder what he saw that made him go for siege tanks here. I think it's quite likely that it is the robo plus the lack of mass gateways, because maybe he thought it was going to be Colossus, for example. As we know, Hero he actually only has 2 gases. He doesn't even have a single gas here. He has 2 gases. I think he went up to 7 gateways. I was going to say 9 actually, but 7 gateways. So mines might be a better choice here. But I think Oliveira decided to use the information of his scan, thought it was a Robo Bane, was going to go for Colossi or Disruptors, and decided to play tanks. I mean, in the end, he was still ahead, so it's okay. Typically, tanks are a bit hit or miss in PvP. If you play tanks in the late game and your opponent went for like a fast 4th base with Mass Zealots, you're not going to be happy. Really good micro on the Cyclone there to kill that Warp Prism, by the way. That Warp Prism could have easily escaped if Oliveira wasn't as good at microing that Cyclone back. Now, that Zealot Warpin didn't do too much. He killed 4 SCVs. Notice how there's a 3rd command center going up and a 4th and 5th barracks. He's still making siege tanks. I'm surprised to see this. I wonder what the reasoning is. I would say there's a good chance Oliveira wants to end this game already at this point. Because if you're making tanks, something that is pretty good with tanks is doing an all-in. Like, you don't really want to play macro siege tanks. The only times you would do that is if you play, let's say, against a Protoss that goes for very heavy Colossi, doesn't expand a lot, then tanks are really good. If you play someone who likes to make Zealots, who likes to be aggressive, who likes to make Templar Archives, or someone who likes to mass expand, then tanks are not usually the best option. So the fact he's going for tanks, also making Liberators, really shows that he wants to go for a big pusher. And something Oliveira has been amazing at throughout this entire IM Katowice, the World Championship, is just this killer instinct. I saw everyone being impressed by this killer instinct. It's just crazy. Here we go. He is attacking without SCVs. There's no SCV pool. Keep in mind, he did make a 3rd base behind this. His worker count is pretty decent, so he doesn't have to. Now, Hero's coming in from 2 sides. There looks like a pretty good fight there by Hero. Notice how he target fired the siege tanks on the Stalkers. Very important move. Stalkers take extra damage from tanks. Zealots don't. And here we go. He basically traded the tanks for all those Zealots, which sometimes is a fantastic trade. Sometimes is not that good. Notice Hero starting up Storm at +1. Oliveira does have a massive upgrade lead. And here we go. If you look at the minimap, the SCVs are coming. Hero's going for a counterattack, but this is perhaps the most important thing. And this is the SCV pool I was talking about. An absolute legendary SCV pool. Everyone was going crazy over this because he attacked first without SCVs. And then he reactively decided after that trade that going for the SCV pool was the best. And look at the timing here, guys. Storm is halfway done. Hero thought the attack was over. He has 66 probes. Storm is halfway done. +1 is halfway done. And there are not that many Zealots here. All the Zealots that the Hero warped in are on the other side of the map in Oliveira's main base. And he denies the Storm, I think at about 60 or 70%, which is incredible. And without Storm, what is Hero going to do against this mass amount of biounits? Sure, there are Zealots in Oliveira's main base, but if you look at the workers lost, he only killed 7 workers so far compared to 26. He's going to lose the natural as well. He tried to pull workers one more time, but the army of Oliveira is just so massive. Liberators are shooting the Archons, which is quite literally the best possible uses of those Liberators. The Immortals are going to die as well. Heroes tried for a flank, but this SCV pool might have been the best timed SCV pool ever. And this is super important, guys. This series was tied 1-1, and after this, it looks like he's going to go to 2-1 with that SCV pool, and that might have saved the entire series for him. Momentum is super important. Hero's going to try to survive, but there's even a tank arriving. That tank makes sure the Stalkers are are not going to be useful enough. He's going to go for that Immortal. Stalkers are going to die. There we go. He does have a good amount of Stalkers, actually, but the Marauders with the medevac support is just a little bit too much. Keep in mind that is 6 medevacs. They make a big difference. Sometimes you look at this and you're like, oh, it's just a few Marines and Marauders. Stalkers are going to do fine, but no, those are going to be healed up like crazy. Snipes the pilot warping in, and just like that, Oliveira takes game number 3, getting the 2-1 lead. The second game I'm going to show you guys is game number 4 of the series. Now, I already hear a probe being annoying. There we go. Hero really loves sending out probes early on just to annoy the Terran. And I thought this was actually... I mean, it's a very small detail, but I really love small details like this. I love that Oliveira just built his barracks here. If a Protoss scouts really early, it's obviously quite the economic investment. So a lot of Terrans, including me, I've never even built my barracks there. I would always still try to build my barracks there, but then you keep having to send SCVs over. And Oliveira is just like, nah, I'm not going to deal with that stuff. I'll just build my barracks right here, and it's going to be way easier for me to deal with that probe. And it's just smart. I mean, something you could be worried for is maybe not having a wall off later on, adept shading in easily, but there are obviously ways to deal with that. Maybe you can wall off with the factory instead, for example. And I think I really love those small details that are just like a little bit better, just make life a little bit easier, and I always want to point those out. Now, Hero not proxy gating this time. I imagine after the fiasco of last game, he's not going to try that again. He's really good at doing this. He just keeps going on. Look at this. I actually thought if I would look at this probe that you would see the health being red or orange, but he only went in when he had max shield. That's very well done, and that is what Hero's the best at. Now you can see he's still being annoying here, but he knows the Reaper is gonna come out very soon, so he decided to dip away here. Now he's gonna go for a Reaper once again. I do think Oliveira played not the exact same build, but pretty much the same style every game, which is the Reaper expand into the Marine. Very commonly, Terrans play double gas expand these days. I love the fact that perhaps the new best Terran in the world does not use that build that much, and I say that with a little bit of pain in my heart, because I invented double gas against Protoss, and everyone started using it, but I myself just don't think it's that good of a build anymore. I feel like I see it lose a lot in the early game. People take so much damage from just a couple of deaths being thrown out of the map. Their own eco was damaged, so I'm happy that perhaps the new best Terran in the world doesn't seem to like it that much and is using, in my opinion, better builds. Now, he's probably going to go for that second barracks again, I believe. There you go, the second barracks. With the gas actually a little bit delayed. I'm also trying to copy the build myself, maybe for some latter games that I want to try. He doesn't seem to get the gas instantly after the factory. That might be slightly delayed. That is good to know. Now, look at the scout that the Reaper is doing. I'm actually interested how or when he's going to scout with this Reaper. Because, like I said, he's going for the... Ooh, that's actually an accident by the Reaper. Or a mistake, rather. Now he took a bit of extra damage, can't scout. I want to know when he scouts so he can react with the factory. Like I said, sometimes he'll go for a Hellion, sometimes he'll go for maybe a faster stim or a third barrack, sometimes a Cyclone. And I think he would love to scout that it's a Stargate so he can go Cyclones reactively. The build he did last game is probably the best option against Stargate. You go for one Cyclone. The Cyclone kind of denies the air army a little bit, denies the Phoenixes and Oracles, and then you can go for fast third racks behind it. Not giving your opponent any air units to snipe with Phoenixes in particular is a pretty big deal. Like, if you go for Widow Mine drops early, a Phoenix are just going to be having a fantastic time against him. So here you can see Hero actually going across. Wait, are those 2 SCVs in the bunker? Oh, it is 2 SCVs. Wow, look at that. He actually saved 2 SCVs on red health in the bunker. I was really wondering, like, why doesn't he use the 2 Marines that are in the bunker? But that makes a lot more sense. 3 Marines, not quite enough. And now he has the Cyclone. His Reaper is going into the main base, as you can see. It is going to scout the Stargate here. And I'm sure as a reaction to the Phoenix and the Stargate, he's going to be adding a third barracks here. He's going for a tank as well. So I'm not quite sure if that's meant for a follow-up push or if the tank is just to defend anyway. I do have to add a little bit of context to understand the tank in this case, because tanks, like I said in the last game, are usually meant for all-ins, if you want to use them like this. Wait, he actually did cancel? Oh, he canceled the tank. Okay, beautiful. What I was going to say is that Hero likes to play Oracle into 4-gate Blink attack. So he goes for Stargate, but still goes for 4-gate Blink. But Oliveira, seemingly realizing that it's mostly Phoenixes, actually cancels the tank and goes for a third barrack. So you can see the level of adaptation there. This is not the kind of build that you can copy and just do every game. You need to use those adaptations. Now you see Hero snarking around with his Phoenixes. He does get the scout on the third barracks, probably the lack of siege tanks and a starport. And now Hero is making his own adaptation, going for a Robo Bay. And this is probably the scariest scenario you can have for this 2-1 build that Oliveira keeps doing, because heavy bio unit attacks early on are very weak against Colossus. Colossi are absolutely insane against Marine, and I mean that. It's one of the most one-sided unit interactions in the game. Colossi against Marine absolutely gets shredded, so the fact that Oliveira gets a lot of Marines early and the hero can respond by making Colossi is not that great for Oliveira. Now, I do like to see the adaptation on both sides. Something Hero is doing here is he actually stopped Phoenix production for a while, so he can get an Immortal up, a Robo Bay, and still make a third base at a reasonable time. Phoenixes are quite expensive. They build pretty fast. If you just chrono boost them non-stop, you're not going to be able to afford a lot, so Hero making his own adaptations here against Oliveira's adaptations is very cool to see. Now he's going for 2 fast medevacs. That's also a decent benefit of this style because you're not going for a Widowmine drop. You're not going for Banshees or Raven. You can get a very fast medevac drop. And actually for me, I have not used this style a lot. It was a little bit popular I want to say a year ago actually. At the last World Championship, it was used a lot by Ryung, a Korean Terran player. But it wasn't used to like the biggest success ever, so it wasn't super popular. It was meta for a bit, and then people switched away from it, and now Oliveira is bringing it back. But this is really my style. I love doing early drops as a reaction. Like, this is a 6-minute drop going out, and I have to admit, you have to be a little bit brave to do this. He's sending out drops all the way around the map. You always have to do this against Stargate, because else they catch it. But even then, sometimes there is the chance your medevacs get caught and you might just be in a little trouble. So you have to be very brave to send this drop out, but it looks like he has done it at the perfect time. There's a really nice spotting adept there by Hero. That's very well done. Usually Protoss players will make a pylon there so you can see the medevacs coming, but he just has an adept chilling, which is very well done. And now notice on the mini-map that Oliveira is also moving out with his secondary army. There's no third base in sight yet. He's making Widowmines this time instead of tanks as well, which is interesting. You see instant recall on those Phoenixes as the adept spotted the medevacs. Oliveira is still gonna go in. And let's see, there's only 4 Phoenixes here. Hero loses 1 Phoenix instantly. There's no Twilight upgrades whatsoever here, guys. This is just, he has 1 battery. Oliveira is going for the Killer Instinct, targets the batteries instantly, gets the Stalkers, gets in the mineral line. Colossus is approaching from the left, but there's so many probes going down. Notice how he's kiting to the right side. He's still killing so many probes because the Colossus is leaving. And now the attack is hitting the third base at the same time. The Colossus was distracted. Now let's see what he's going to go for. He's going for the Nexus. I think he maybe should have gone for the probes here, but if he gets the Nexus, it's going to be massive. The Nexus goes down, and just like that, with one fell swoop, he gets a really big... How does he kill that Colossus too? What the hell? I'm just surprised right now because I feel like if I go Colossus with that few units, they always survive. There's a Phoenix chasing. Phoenix might even go down. And just like that, he gets a really big advantage. He's up in workers. Remember what I said last game? You need to be up by about 6-7 workers as Protoss, maybe even more at this point. Sometimes it's more than 10. And Oliveira has a third base building. He's going up to 4 or 5 barracks. And Hero doesn't even have money to remake a base. It looks like he's kind of all in here. He does still have a Colossus. Colossus are very scary in this situation because there's no Vikings out yet. There's no Ghost to remove those shields or to prevent sentries from force fielding. So it needs to be very dangerous. I freaking love these Widowmines, by the way. I think, yeah, exactly. There's not a single observer on the map. He can't see those Widowmines. So he either has to spend time microing with a prism. You can, like, force the Widowmine to shoot and then pick it up with a Warp Prism, or just tank a unit, and every single unit has died. Hero is in such a rush that those Widowmines have been amazing, and I love this level of adaptation. He actually is gonna go for late siege tanks. You would never do that, but Oliveira, realizing how far ahead he is, he just needs a counter to the Colossus, still switches back to the tank. And the level of adaptation on just the factory this game has been insane. He made Widowmines at some point, canceled the siege tank for a third barracks, and now he's still making a tank later on. The Vikings are going to be targeting that Warp Prism. Very important move here. Warp Prisms can juggle the Colossus, and you do not want that, allow that to be micro. There we go. The Warp Prism goes down, and now he can just get a really nice concave. Make sure the Colossus don't get to shoot the massive Marines. The last Colossus is going to fall, and look at the upgrades, guys. Remember, 3 base against 2. Oliveira's up 1 upgrade. He's going to drop on top of the Colossus to remove the splash damage and snipe the last Colossus. And now I imagine he's going to try to go for a counter-attack punch. He's making another tank. I don't believe... Is there a charge, actually? No, there's not even charge here. There's no Twilight upgrades. And now Hero is just going to be praying that his disruptors get the biggest hits of all time. I mean, let's be honest, guys. It has happened before. I've probably lost a position like this against 2 disruptors blowing up my entire army and myself getting pissed off, you know? That happens. Oh, really nice split there. Does still get surprisingly kill the tank and the Marauder with that. And you can see Oliveira's going for it. He's probably going to have to back off a little bit. Yeah, guys, just one tip. A green battery heals a lot, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. That green battery heals an absolute crap ton, so ideally do not fight in it. Look at the splits here, guys. Colossi, like I said, amazing units. But if you keep your unit spread, let's see. Oh, that's a perfect pickup. You saw that Disruptor was about to kill a million units, but he picked up perfectly in time. He snipes the Colossus. Now he's gonna snipe the Stalkers. Remember, these Zealots don't have charge, and there's quite nothing he can do against these Marauders right now. Hopefully that one Stalker has enough DPS for hero, but otherwise those Zealots are just gonna die for free. He has no battery left. He has no Disruptors, no Colossus, and just like that, Oliveira takes 2 games. And I want to say, in relatively easy fashion, relatively convincing fashion, and just like that, this looks like this was a normal game in an online cup. No, guys, this was the semifinals of the World Championship. The biggest underdog run of all time continues. I'll probably make another video on the finals because he had another few amazing games there. Let me know if you're interested in that, and if so, make sure to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see y'all for the next one. Adios.